Thank you for
Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
All right, as business leaders, it's our responsibility to manage conflict because conflict is critical to the success or failure of your business. Now, very seldom does conflict arise during your hiring process, as it's often selling unicorn dreams and a utopian culture, giving people an inaccurate picture of how your company truly operates. Now, today we're going to discuss how to do conflict well in your company and to understand if the person you're about to hire will be able to assimilate into how your company truly operates. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders like our guest today, Mr. Ryan Redding. Ryan is a seasoned digital marketer and the founder of Levergy. He specializes in delivering digital marketing solutions tailored to home services companies. His passion lies in helping business owners achieve their dreams through strategic marketing initiatives. Now, Ryan's also the author of a book, and it's called The Book on Digital Marketing for Plumbing and HVAC Contractors, available on Amazon, and the host of Blue Collar CEO, a podcast for home service companies, which is what makes Ryan the perfect expert for today's topic. Ryan, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Dude, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. I love this topic because we haven't really talked about conflict so much, and it's such a critical component of how businesses operate. I'd like to start out with a story of how we got to this topic of conflict.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think a lot of people think of conflict as a weird topic, as like maybe they think of it as like family infighting or like the drama that you have in the office, and that's not exactly what I'm talking about. So for me personally, about maybe 8 years ago at this point, maybe 7 years ago, the business was growing so fast, and I was needing to get more and more stuff off our plate. Like we couldn't hire fast enough. We just couldn't get the right people in the right seats, and the process was like I need someone to sit in a role to kind of oversee all of our fulfillment teams. So for us, like we're a digital marketing, so we do web development, we do search engine optimization, we do social media, we do AdWords, we do all those things. And it's like, I just need a good, solid generalist who can work with teams of specialists to kind of knock stuff out. So we looked everywhere. And our office at the time was headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So not a massive like talent pool to farm from. But one of the guys that applied, I'm going to call him Billy. Billy
Billy Brew.
Billy. And in no way is that a made up sounding name in any way. It is 100% plausible. But Billy applied and on paper like met all the right things. Like he had all the right certifications, went to the right schools, he worked at the right agencies. Like on paper, fantastic. We actually ran him through skills assessments, we ran him through personality like assessments. Like, this guy's awesome. How to meet different people on the team. Everything checked out great. What was aiding the fact was that he was a transplant from Australia. So he had this beautiful, rich Australian accent, which of course anyone in the United States feels like is like sophisticated and elevated. So he had this way of just when he would speak, people would just freeze and just like hang on every word he said. And so like this must be the right guy. Like everything's coming back, 5 by 5 on all assessments.
So you get seduced by the accent.
The accent, I'm telling you, it is a powerful thing. I think, and to be fair, I think anyone who watches rom-coms will attest to the same thing too. Like Hugh Grant exists because of the accent in rom-coms.
I don't know if you want to call Hugh Grant though like an Australian. I think some people might get
well, not that he's Australian, because I think he's British. But the point is like the accent is like this. For Americans, we like romanticize what that means when we elevate. It's just how they talk, right? But for us, it's like, oh, you're sophisticated. And so made the guys hire. He actually relocated to Tulsa, which is baffling. Like Tulsa's, if anyone's been there before, it's a great little town, but it's a small little town. And so relocated, we were all pumped. The team was super excited. Did this whole like welcome to Levergy sort of thing for him. And it took maybe 10 days to realize things weren't adding up. Like the math just wasn't mathing on who we got versus who we thought we were getting. And it was a really interesting problem that started developing from that point.
So I'd imagine you guys have an environment where, well, and we'll delve into a little bit more. Conflict is present in every organization. I would imagine as you've been growing, you guys are trying to figure out at this point how to do it right, how to manage it and how to grow with that. Was there a problem with him as far as him being able to provide feedback or deal with how you guys solve problems?
Yeah, okay. So I would say most businesses don't really intentionally focus on addressing conflict until it becomes an issue. Everyone sort of responds the same way. No one thinks anything of it. As soon as somebody's different, everyone is like, something's off here. So in this case, it was a few things. Is one, we have people to work for us in, I don't know, at the time maybe 12 or 13 countries. I'm just guessing. We had multiple people from multiple countries apart on our payroll. And so he would come in and he would work with these teams and he'd work with these specialists, and like, so we'd hire people from Amazon, hire people from Google and all these companies, but they would live wherever they chose to live, right? Because that's the nature of a lot of our world. But in the process, I would start getting feedback of, he would start working with them on teams, he'd start working with them on like task and project management, and they would give me notes of like, he doesn't quite have what we're looking for. Like, he's getting stuck in the wrong details, he's pushing on the wrong points, he's not asking the right questions. It's almost as if for the first time everyone was like really having to live with this sort of, what the crap did we just do with hiring Billy. And the teams kind of started struggling to break down. So you had some people trying to like salvage it, like, oh, nothing to see here, I can just bend over backwards, I'll fix it, I'll make it work. You had other teams like butting heads because he would say something like, no, that hasn't been remotely true in 5 or 6 years. You'd have other people who just like didn't even acknowledge that he existed in a role. Like, it was the weirdest things. And so that's
They're
when
like, Billy who? I don't know who this Billy guy.
yeah, it's like, no, 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 no. And it started occurring to me that there's actually a continuum of how people respond to conflict. And like, if I were to make this continuum uh largely simplistic and just on just an x-axis, on one hand you would have what I now call artificial harmony. And this is like, my in-laws have artificial harmony. Don't talk about the problem, don't rock the boat, just sweep everything under the rug, keep the peace at all cost. And for those people, they think that they are superior because they're not dramatic, because they're not like hashing stuff out, because they're not having awkward conversations. Look how mature they are, that they can bottle all this stuff up inside and you never know. That is a whole sort of dysfunction that creates really weird family dinners, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
same is true with company cultures. On the other side of the same continuum is what I would call destructive conflict. Destructive conflict is, it's what my family of origin does. Rick, like, there's no way that you would walk into my family's home for any event and them not critique you for, why is your head so shiny? Have you considered growing out your hair? Because it doesn't look good. And the point for them is not necessarily to communicate ideas, it's to like to bash, to destroy, to tear down, because they want to win. And the only way for them to feel good is if somebody else feels bad. Both of these are continuums that are bad. Like, it is a
For
bad
sure.
polarity that exists. And that's just keeping it just on like, hey, we're all in the same like culture. Like, so my in-laws are from St. Louis, my family's from Oklahoma. So it's like, cool. We're not even taking into account how people in Mexico or people in Germany or people in Australia express and display conflict. This is just really broad strokes. And so, yeah, so what started happening is realizing that there was a whole variety of people that would approach things through their own cultural lens, and it would exist largely on this continuum. Some people pretending like nothing was there, bending over backwards to try to hide the mess, and other people just wanting to go fisticuffs. And it was a
Gosh, you know what? And
crazy
that
world.
creates a whole lot of problems. That's one of the things that I, experience share. I mean, I had a company that I worked with. It was a client for a while. super toxic culture. What would be considered toxic culture? Very in your face, but they didn't display to people coming on board that they had this type of environment. When you went into a meeting, you were challenged and you were thrown to the wolves. But this wasn't anything that was communicated at all in the interview process because they just wanted to get people to accept their offers. The right type of person's going to thrive in that environment, but guess who's not? Almost everybody else.
Yeah.
I think I could probably hold my own with your family, but I'm sure that other people would not. They'd come out of there just feeling completely just torn down. So how does this parlay to how you guys decided how to do conflict well then?
Large part of this in the moment, like, because at one point you're just going, this is a like, this is a hiring issue, right? Is this a core competence issue? Is this a character issue? Is it like, I heard someone say several years ago, they talked about the 4 C's: character, culture, competency, and chemistry. And they're like, hey, all those 4 C's need to be aligned. And so early on, it's just trying to assess Billy's hires. Like, hey, did we miss one of the 4 C's? Right? Is there a cultural component that's just misaligned? Is there a
Yeah.
competence thing that we just didn't pick up on? So in hindsight, like, as we've kind of worked through this as a company, as a leadership team, we've started to learn that being able to have healthy conflict not only prevents issues from happening, but it really does change the rules come entirely, because it encourages innovation. It gives you different perspectives. It allows you to solve decisions better and faster. Problem solving tends to be enhanced when you understand how to do conflict well. There tends to be a greater amount of like team cohesion, of team trust. People don't feel like they're having to look over their shoulders. It's not a bureaucratic environment. It's not a political environment. And because of that, because people are just able to focus on the productivity, communicating on the best outcome, those teams tend to be able to hit their goals really well. They tend to be high performance teams. But we've only been able to learn that in hindsight, like in the mirror. But in that like first 10 days of Billy's hire, there's no way under the sun that any of that framework remotely made sense. Not at all.
That's so true. Are you listening to the Higher Power Radio Show? For our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors.
Hey, this is William Tincup. Listen, we did a series for iSolved called Heroes of HR, where we talk to HR practitioners. And these are just your run-of-the-mill, everyday, slogging it out, 300 employees in Cedar Rapids, HR pros. Mostly it's centered around iSolved and what they do with iSolved, but also they talk a lot about kind of the day-to-day rigor of HR. If you're curious about that, search for Heroes of HR wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
Hey, I'm digging in deeper here with our guest, Ryan Redding. Ryan is the owner of Levergy, and we're talking about doing conflict well. Every company has conflict. I got to share kind of an interesting thing that I've experienced. It's been pretty common is that there's always this tendency for a lot of smaller businesses to want to pull from a person who comes from a name brand company. I've seen a lot of problems in that how large organizations operate and deal with conflict tend to be very different than how small companies do it and how they're trying to figure it out. But there tends to always be a much more political hierarchy in a large company that doesn't exist a lot of times in smaller companies. And when that's brought into a smaller company, that's created a lot of issues. I think, as you say, the 4 C's, that
Yeah.
cultural component for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, when you think about most companies, right, you can talk about like organizational life cycle and go, hey, the longer a company's been in business, they tend to start turning inward for their own self-interest, for their own protection. People tend to set up little camps, little silos, and conflict in those things either tends to be very bureaucratic or very political. Like, you're having to do calculus on what you do say or what do you not say, because you're trying to maneuver your statement because you know how someone's going to respond. For us, because to your point, like, at some point we were less like a bureaucratic institution and we were more like a basketball team.
Mhm.
Everyone played both sides of the ball, lots of constant communication, things are happening nonstop. We didn't have the luxury of saying, hey, we have someone who this is all they do is this one little thing and they have to do it super well, and they kind of build themselves a little siloed kingdom. We had to be able to work all sides of the ball. I was introduced to a framework, which is Patrick Lencioni's table group method, which he has written 2 books on the subject. One called The Advantage, one called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which really shed a lot of light on this for me. And in his framework, he basically says it's not necessarily about the age of the organization or the age of the institution or to what degree is it bureaucratic or not. He really makes it fundamentally about trust. At the end of the day, to what degree do people trust each other? So he uses this idea called vulnerability based trust, and this is different than predictive based trust. So predictive based trust, like I mentioned, is like, if I say this, you're going to do this, so I'm going to say it this way in this time so that you react the way I want you to. You're trying to like control, you're doing the calculations and you're spending your energy maneuvering other people rather than just talking. In a vulnerability based trust framework, you basically say, I don't know the right answer. You know this better than I do, Rick. What would you do in the situation? Like, you're exposing a little bit of weakness about yourself that somebody else could choose to weaponize, but you trust that they don't. And in this dynamics, you start creating this space where you realize that people aren't out to fight you, they're not out to get you, they're not trying to destroy your kingdom. You create a dynamic where people are just looking for the best possible solution. So when you have the trust, that gets you up to the next layer of this kind of pyramid. And in the next layer, like, you're really kind of focusing on to what degree you're able to say you can have the conflict. So again, you're not saying, you're not trying to destroy, you're not trying to win, you're not trying to dance around, you're not trying to maneuver, you're not doing any of that. You're literally just saying you're trying to contribute to the best possible solution based on the information you have. That's it.
Gotcha. So you guys actually adopted this process or framework, and that's what you've built into your company.
Yep. Again, this is post Billy, but Billy to us was like a sacrificial lamb, so to speak, to realize
Or
the effects
Billy.
of not being able to address this proactively and thoughtfully. The way it can definitely have massive implications beyond the obvious of just like a bad hire.
Let's talk about how you guys do conflict now. You guys have put this framework into play. Walk me through. We have an issue that we got to deal with. Boom. Let's talk about how we approach it, how we deal with it.
So in this sort of thing, the process is kind of simple because you have 3 possible options, and it really just depends on the severity of the issue, to what degree other people are involved. If it is a 5-minute water cooler conversation, we basically say, stop what you're doing, have the 5-minute water cooler conversation. Don't schedule a meeting. Don't like put it on the agenda for the next staff meeting. Just get it done. Get it done, move on. There's a funny story. If anyone read the book Creativity Inc., which is the story of when Disney bought Pixar and they put Pixar in charge of Disney. And it has a lot of like John Lasseter's sort of exposure going, why do I have to schedule a conference room and a project manager and a graphic design team lead just to go have a conversation about, I don't understand the way the hair is being animated on this character. Why can't I just go and talk to them? So like there's this whole kind of framework in there too, which you can call that a culture element. To what degree does a culture resist the ability to flex to change? But for us, it's like, if it's a 5-minute water cooler conversation, if you just need to go walk over to someone's desk and talk and hash something out, do it. Do it. Don't schedule anything. Don't tell anyone. Don't circle. Just get it done. The next thing is something where you need people on various teams or various departments to weigh in their perspectives. So often in business, like, there's very rarely something where one person can make a decision that doesn't impact someone else. Somebody wants to do a marketing campaign. That's going to have financial resources. That's going to have capacity issues, either manufacturing or service or whatever. Like, there's going to be collaboration required from multiple departments to actually solve this decision. In this case, you have 55 minutes. 55 minutes, set it on the docket, hash out, here's the issues you're finding. You get 5 minutes to state, here's the problem, here's what we're trying to solve. And then you get the rest of the time to actually tear apart. Here's the options, here's what I need to do. 55 minutes in, you are going, we have a solution. That's it. And if in lieu of being able to say you have a solution, now you say, cool, we actually have a task force, but someone else needs to follow up on this to actually see if this is feasible. You can actually assign those action items. So the point is, you're making decisions. You're not just airing grievances. But the third type of category is probably the one that's most difficult to do thoughtfully, and that is things that when a problem is brought forward that has cultural or organizational implications, something involving the strategy for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of a business, something involving, hey, do we restructure this? Do we go after this new industry? Do we retool our department for this? These things require a lot more than 55 minutes of conversation. Because there's a whole lot of people, there's a whole lot of process, there's a whole lot of capital that's dependent on being able to execute that well. So in this process, you'd say you're taking this whole framework offline. Take it. It can usually be a Thursday, Friday, it can be a Friday, Saturday, but get out of the office, lock yourself away, and you are hammering out the solution as much as you possibly can. 2 days dedicated to solving the problem.
Let's delve into this 55-minute. You're talking about, hey, look, we've got a problem that came up. You're pulling in different members of the team that are working on it. I'm assuming this is kind of like an immediate all hands meeting. We've got an issue. We got to solve it.
Yeah, it can be immediate. If they're immediate, it's more like the water cooler conversation. Like you just need a decision made. Sure. But if it is an all hands, sometimes there's work required to actually have the meeting. Like you don't want to find yourself griping about something and somebody asks a question like, well, has anyone asked about John to see what he thinks about X, Y, or Z, or if we can do that? No. Okay, well, now everyone's time's wasted because you just can go have one stupid conversation with a guy who has access to information that will make your decision better. So sure. In this sort of 55 meeting, you're basically saying, here's kind of the problem we're set out to solve, and you kind of assign who's responsible for providing or gathering the information you need to actually thoughtfully have the conversation. So
we have people that are not agreeing. What are the rules for engagement from that perspective?
Yeah, so you want people to not agree. Like that is the beauty. I think everyone rushes through.
Wait, what?
I think the default assumption is let's just get this done fast and move on. The reality is diverse teams are really good at solving problems, argue, they debate, they tear apart ideas because they're not trying to tear someone down. They're not trying to say, Rick, I don't like your face. They're trying to make the idea better. If your team is quiet, you should have every alarm bell going off. As a leader, you should be able to say, you have to start the fire. You have to call people out to disagree. But you're trying to foster debate, foster the conflict. This does not work if people don't trust each other. This does not work if somebody's got 1 foot out the door. This does not work if the leader in the room or the most senior person in the room is incapable of showing vulnerability. It won't work. Everyone has to be able to pitch into the process. But once it's happening, you put simple rules to help make it easier. So one of the things is like time blocking. Let somebody speak uninterrupted for 5 minutes. No one interrupt them. No one pitch in. It's kind of like, when you're kind of whiteboarding, you're just kind of throwing stuff at the whiteboard, like, here's an idea. There are no bad ideas in this moment. You're just letting somebody get the ideas out. And you can go around the room and let people put out for 5 minutes. Here's kind of their thoughts. Try to tear it down. Try to do whatever. At the end of it, you do a round of voting. I'm a huge fan of a process called Fist to 5. Fist to 5 is a great way to assess how ready are you to make a decision on something with that conflict in mind. So the idea is really simple, kind of like, rock, paper, scissors, except Fist to 5 is 1, 2, 3, throw. If it's a fist you throw, it means you're ready to go knuckles. Like you will go to fight someone, punch them in the face because you hate it that bad. 5 means you're all in, let's go. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is everywhere in the middle between I'm going to punch you in the face to let's go. And your goal is to get everyone to a 5. So when you do Fist to 5, you're like, cool, you got 3 5s. You get this other dude who's a fist and this other dude is a 1. Now the floor goes to those guys. Hey, dude, it's a fist. Tell us what you're seeing here. Like, why are you a fist? They get another 5 minutes to kind of, here's my concern. And again, you're trying to get them all to a 5. At the end of it, you're trying to get to this idea of what has been made famous by the CEO of Dell, but has been more popularized by Jeff Bezos, is this idea of disagree, but commit. In this 55-minute meeting, you want everyone to disagree. You want everyone to tear it down. You want everyone to put their debate and concern into this to make the idea better. When it's all said and done, when the team is all 5s, everyone owns that idea and that decision as though it's their own. What you don't want is people walking away from that meeting, having a secret side meeting, being like, well, did you see Rick's decision? It's going to fail. Because those people are literally sabotaging the business before they even start. You want them to voice the dissent in the group of people If they can't do it, they don't belong in the team. But when they have the fist of five, you measure it, you get them out, whatever to be in the five, and whatever the group decides on at the end of the 55 minutes, the group owns it as though it's their own every time.
That's such a huge point in that everybody really has to make the commitment, even if it wasn't their idea, because sometimes egos get crushed. My idea was better. There's a reason for this conflict, and it's really not about ego, it's about what's best for the business.
If you can foster that culture, which in my experience, the Lencioni framework of the vulnerability-based trust goes a long way to do that. There is no better force on the planet than a team that trusts each other, that is able to have conflict, that is able to commit to the decisions that they make, that is able to hold themselves accountable to those decisions. That there's no industry that they cannot dominate at any point in time when they have those forces at play. That does not mean it's easy. It does not mean, but it also doesn't mean that it's complicated. It is very, very, very simple to do. The simplicity requires discipline, and that's usually where people are going to struggle.
Now, what's interesting is that I have a bit of a suggestion too, because a lot of times this does not come up with an interview during the interview process. A lot of times we kind of do the show and tell thing, and then we're surprised when the new employee is even more surprised when they get into a situation where they've got to deal with all this and they have no idea what's going on. Creating a little bit of conflict during the interview process in the form of two ways. One, in understanding and providing a little bit of conflict in the way in which you ask interview questions to dig a bit deeper does make somebody uncomfortable, but it also sets the framework for how you operate. Another thing is when you actually bring somebody in for a face to face to meet with the team, it's a really good opportunity at that point for them to experience conflict and how you guys resolve it in such a way. So, an exercise in and around that can be highly invaluable into whether or not person's going to come out of the interview process. They're going to think, oh my God, this is a place I want to work at. Or they're going to be like, oh my God, get me away from this place. It's not what I thought it was. And both of those are good outcomes.
They're both good outcomes. And it's interesting because like what I've learned is a lot of people do the DISC, and there are certain indicators on a DISC assessment that kind of will give you a preview into how someone might like handle themselves in conflict. There's other assessments that I found since Billy's incidents called the Colby assessment, which I've learned to be a really big fan of which is also has predictive indicators of how one goes about this. But bar none, to the point you're making, the best way to get this out in a job interview is to, as the leader, to demonstrate the same traits and aspects of vulnerability-based trust in those contexts. You're not protecting yourself. You're not throwing other people under the bus. You're not trying to politicize, kind of weaponize behind the scenes. When you are able to demonstrate that this is a behavioral attribute that your company expresses and lives out, and it manifests itself at meetings and the company parties and all these things, that is picked up 100% by the candidates. You can 100% tell when you walk into a room of people if they trust each other or if they're just co-working together. And if you don't know what that's like, go to any DMV in the United States, go to any religious office in the United States, go to any family dinner in the United States. You'll see these different dynamics at play real fast. Put yourself in the situation, just watch. But you'll know, like as a candidate, you can't help but pick up that healthy teams behave different because they are different. And those are really compelling cases to make.
Yeah, I totally agree. And your point about it being real, that's really what you have to don't display something that's not real. As entrepreneurs, we like to be aspirational about our values and everything else, and that does not serve the business well. All right, sure. We're getting really close on time. Ryan, what would be 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience that can plug into the business today?
So it's so interesting because this conversation actually, in a really thoughtful way, kind of evolved differently than I think I thought going in. One is, I'm just going to say, one is from a hiring process decision. Like, don't rush it. It's really easy to respond to the stress of, oh, I need somebody here now. Make sure you have the right person in the right seat. Make sure you know how to identify who these people are. Like we've since moved to like a 90-day temp to hire for all of our roles because of Billy's instance. So we're not W2ing anyone within a 10-day period.
Mhm.
So there's things you can do, like don't rush it, put those systems process in place. But I think another thing is create a culture, which is hard to do. Create a culture that's willing to have awkward, candid conversations quickly without having to jump through a lot of bureaucratic hoops, without having to schedule meetings, without having to tiptoe around. Well, they don't want to piss off their boss. When you can get that information out of your team quickly, you can make a better decision for the business, full stop. And if that's letting somebody go in 10 days versus in our case, it was almost a year until I finally bit the bullet, or to prevent the hire at all, the
Which is
more
my
your
favorite
team,
option.
yeah, yeah. If you can, the idea being like, obviously filter those people out fast, right? Fast and
Yep.
cheap is the way to go.
Yep.
But sometimes people are going to sleek through, like no matter what assessment, no matter what grading score, no matter what rubric, people are still going to find themselves in there that don't belong. But if you have a culture set up correctly in a healthy way, the culture will reject those people. Just like somebody getting a transplant in their body and their body rejects the transplant, the organization itself will reject the people. They will not last. They won't. And it won't because the manager fired them and because the peers pushed them out. That is the most beautiful thing on the planet.
That is so very true. Ryan, thanks so much for your time investment today. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way in which members of the audience can find you and learn more about your company?
Well, that's awesome. So it's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. Anyone, if they want to pick up what we're doing, levergy.io is our website. We're at all the social handles. We have a TikTok thing, we have a YouTube thing. We do have the book you mentioned on Amazon. So if somebody just researches Levergy, they're going to find us, and all of our stuff's everywhere.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. A quick thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Ayla Girard. If you're listening to the podcast, please review, subscribe, and share, not necessarily in that order. We're listening. We welcome your feedback. After all, this show's for you. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue.ai. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Hello.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Girard.